I was Mayor of The Dalles. John has had a 30-plus year love affair with the governmental history of Wasco County. In 1970, he wrote a book about the county government, and there are a couple of copies of that around the room here for you to look at and to read. But since then, he's done a lot more research, and the culmination of that is the presentation that he's doing today on the 3 courthouses of Wasco County, all of which still exist, and we are kind of unique in that respect. And without further ado, I'm going to let John take over.
Thank you, Sandy, for those kind words. It's getting a little warm up here, is it?
No.
It's getting warm up here. Well, thanks to everybody for coming. This is Sesquicentennial Day for the state of Oregon. Like Sandy said, next slide there, Sandy, please.
Okay.
That's the book she was referring to, and there is, unfortunately, it was sold out a long time ago, and haven't made any more. And okay, next slide, please. This is on the 3 courthouses. Those are the dates when they started here in Wasco County. I'm going to start back before it was a statehood. In the creation of the state of Oregon, about a certain man here. Next slide.
After this.
No, wait. Soon after the territory of Oregon was formed on August 14, 1848, the efforts to become a state began. The citizens of Oregon Territory were allowed to vote on the issue 3 times, in 1854, 1855, and 1856. All 3 attempts failed, with slavery being the main issue. Finally, in 1857, the matter of sending a proposal to Congress was approved by the Constitutional Convention, but adoption was slow to happen. Constitutional Convention opened on August 17, 1857 in Salem, and it ended on September 18, 1857, with a proposal for statehood to be voted on by the people of the territory in a special election on November 9, 1857. This was approved by a vote of 7,195 for and 3,215 against. At the same election, allowing slavery and permitting residence of free Negroes and mulattoes were voted down by large majorities. Next slide. Wasco County was represented at the convention by Charles R. Meigs. He was the only delegate who resided east of the Cascade Mountains. Charles R. Meigs was born in Connecticut in 1831. Later he read law in Ohio and was admitted to the bar April 21st, 1854. The next year he went to Oregon and was admitted to practice law. By most accounts, he taught schools in Dalles in 1855 and served in the Indian War. In 1856 he returned to Dalles City and taught school again and was secretary of the IOOF Lodge. In 1857 he was Dalles City treasurer and elected Wasco County representative to the Constitutional Convention. Meigs was appointed Wasco County School Superintendent on December 7, 1857, and resigned a year later. From 1860 to 1866, he was Wasco County District Attorney. In 1864, he was Mayor of The Dalles. He returned back east and died in Ottawa, Kansas in 1883. Now this slide here kind of follow it, the configurations as we go along. It was in the Constitutional Convention that he created quite a ruckus. The first attempt at establishing the boundaries of the new proposed state started on parallel 42 on the coast, then northerly to the mouth of the Columbia River, then easterly up the said river to the mouth of the Snake River, then to the mouth of the Owyhee River, then from the mouth of said river due south to the 42nd parallel, then west to the place of beginning. On August 24, 1857, Meigs offered an amendment that the eastern border of the new state should be the crest of the Cascade Mountains. Thomas J. Dreyer from Multnomah and Washington County said he was opposed to a small state. If we are going to have a state let us have a large state with land and room enough. I know there has been an effort made on the part of a few gentlemen living east of the Cascade Mountains to form a new territory up there. The advocacy comes from a few gentlemen living at or near the Dalles who may have high hopes of becoming governors, judges, and all that sort of thing. The question of adopting the amendment was taken by acclamation. The President asked all those in favor of making Cascade Mountains the eastern boundary of the state of Oregon will say aye. One voice responded. The contrary will say no. Response very loud. On the next day, Meigs offered the same resolution. The vote was yea 2. Matthew Deedy, the president of the convention, voted with him, but the nays 49. Meigs tried for a third time with the same result, yeas 2, nays 49. On September 6, 1857, Meigs moved to substitute the minority report that the state should extend to the Rocky Mountains if it went beyond the Cascades. That lost 3-46. A provision stated the boundaries were accepted by the convention as originally proposed, that the Congress of the United States, in providing for the admission of this state into the Union, may make the said northern boundary conform to the act of creating the Territory of Washington. Now, the Territory of Washington was on March 2nd, 1853, before Wasco became a county. The Act of Congress on February 14th, 1859, admitting Oregon as a state, having designated the 46th parallel of north latitude as the state boundary from the Columbia River to the Shoshones, or Snake River. This line superseded a part of the described boundary outlined in the Constitution, and a strip of territory, including the fertile Walla Walla district, was thus excluded from the state. Now, let's see, back up one, yeah. What we're talking about now, this is the eastern part of the state of Oregon now, and there was one little piece of land up here, south of the Snake River, that was the land in question. And that has come up a couple of different times in different articles that I've noticed. Even the Commissioner's Journals in about 1857 of Wasco County had Walla Walla District as a district and a precinct. So some people think that Walla Walla was included in Wasco County. Well, there was that brief little 6-year period in there where one can kind of, if somebody wasn't doing their homework and things got kind of fouled up, really, and it was over that little piece of land. But it was Congress who had to figure out the difference. Now, the vote. Next slide. The vote in Congress was taken February 12, 1859 on admission, and the total vote was 217, 114 yeas and 103 noes. The news reached Portland by the ocean steamer Brother Jonathan at 4:30 in the morning of March 15th by way of San Francisco, just 1 month and 1 day after President James Buchanan signed the bill on February 14th, 1859. The news probably reached Dalles City by steamboat days later in the middle of March. So what it amounts to now is Happy Birthday, Oregon, and I would like everyone to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. We do have a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, does anybody want to sing Happy Birthday? Happy birthday, dear Oregon. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Oregon. Happy birthday to you. And many more. That's a 33-star flag, and you probably noticed. So that was thanks to Sandy Bissett for getting that here. And I'm happy to be part of the year-long celebration going on. And the big event here locally in September 17th to the 20th, when the Oregon Territorial Express wagon train will be traveling through 5 counties here in Oregon, from John Day to the Dalles. And the Historic Dalles Days has some other things in mind also, but that's going to be a big hoop-de-doo with that stagecoach run. Okay, now next it all came down to the need for a jail. That's how all 3 courthouses got started. And the first place was they were in the Fort Dalles guardhouse, and then you see the first courthouse jail. That's downstairs here, and this is over in the main floor down at second courthouse, and the third courthouse. Sandy Bissett was good enough to photograph those. In the Act to Create and Organize Wasco County, Section 6, that until other provision shall be made for the confinement of persons charged with or convicted of crimes or committed to prison for other lawful cause, the guardhouse of any military post within said county may, with the consent of commanding officer of such post, be used as a jail or place of such confinement. The first Wasco County Commissioners meetings were held in the Dalles, but precise meeting place is not known. The first reference to this is in the Commissioners' proceedings, which took place April 6, 1857, is rented an office to J.R. Bates for sheriff and commissioners for $120. On December 7, 1857, the county commissioners made an agreement with James McAuliffe for use of his office for the auditor, county commissioners, and sheriff at the rate of $30 a month. The first journal entry for using the guardhouse at Fort Dalles was April 8, 1858, to pay the bill of Captain Fletcher for board of prisoners, $15 for 15 days. On September 6, 1858, Captain Fletcher presented a bill for $62.50 for keeping prisoners 50 days at $1.25 each. On July 7, 1859, 2 bills were presented to the commissioners. A bill for $132 from Company K of the 9th Infantry and a bill from Company G, Fort Dalles, for $22. When the guardhouse could not be used or was not available, the prisoners had to be housed elsewhere, and this was expensive. A bill from Clackamas County allowed clerk to draw an order for the amount and forward to the auditors of said county also a note requesting said keeper of the jail to reduce the expense of keeping prisoners, as the commissioners of Wasco will not allow any bills in the future at the rate of their last bill. They didn't say what the last bill was. It must have been horrendous to take him down to Oregon City. It took a petition signed by a large number of Wasco County citizens to convince the county commissioners that the time was right to construct a jail and courthouse. July 5, 1858, the commissioners ordered N.H. Gates and W.C. Moody to act as appointed commissioners to plan, lay out, and contract for the erection of said jail and courtroom at a cost not to exceed $2,500. Gates and Moody reported back to the county commissioners on August 3, 1858, and were directed to proceed with construction of the courthouse and jail using the bid of W.C. Wallace to the extent of $2,500 if necessary to do the work. It took Wallace a little over 1 year to complete the building. On April 6, 1859, Wallace was paid for putting furniture, chimney, and sundry fixtures in the court. The next day, April 7, 1859, the court accepted the courthouse with the provision that Wallace finish painting the rooms, put in the grate, and furnish locks for the cells. So it's not quite the sesquicentennial of this building, not until April 7th. But we can hold off for a couple months, I think. We can still celebrate it. By the way, these locks are downstairs, I think, on display. The first courthouse was a 2-story structure with the sheriff's office and jail on the main floor and courtroom, and the commissioner's and clerk's office space upstairs, just like things are today, really. The courtroom was not only used for county business, but also by religious and political organizations, and this structure is a wonderful example of historic preservation. Congratulations again to the Quick Committee. In the Daily Mountaineer of 1865, the report of the grand jury to the Honorable J.G. Wilson, Judge of Circuit Court. We, the grand jury of Wasco County, respectfully report that we have inspected the buildings used for county purposes. Building used for the courthouse and jail, we find a poor substitute and recommend the erection of a more suitable building. The broken stove now used to warm the sails of the jail, we believe, are unsafe and should be replaced by a better one. The comfort of the prisoners, we think, is provided well for as the arrangements of the building will admit of. Signed, Edward Wingate, foreman of the grand jury. Wasco County purchased the land on which the courthouse stood. It was located on May 4th, 1869. It took approximately 1 decade for the business of the Wasco County government to outgrow the first courthouse facilities. The new building was erected adjacent to the courthouse on August 1870 for the purpose of enlarging the clerk's and sheriff's offices. In the fall of 1871, a storage vault was constructed for the safety of county records. Next slide, please. Now you can see here those extra buildings off to the side in this Velarde photo, taken probably about, I'm going to guess, between 1900 and 1905. They stayed, the Wasco County government stayed in that building for another 12 years until the second courthouse got started. Now, there are 6 locations for this building. The original courthouse was built at 3rd and Court Streets. It was used by the city until 1908 when the new city hall was built. In 1907, there was a report that we, the city, recommend the present wooden city hall be moved to the city lot on the south side of 3rd Street between Court and Washington Streets. On the matter of such removal will not be let by contract, but that the city employ the necessary labor and the work be done under the direction of the city. The report was accepted and a vote of thanks be extended to Mr. W.H. Wilson for this kind offer to donate the renovated city building until the new house is completed. And then in August of 1907, it's moving day down, this is by the Chronicle, it's moving day down on Court Street, and some of the oldest residents down on Police Row are getting up and dusting. Moving are the Water Commissioner's office and the Recorder's office, but the old landmark is the courthouse. This will be moved to the city lot on 3rd and be used for the double purpose of jail and Recorder's office. And then in 1909, the old wooden building used for the last half century for county and city purposes should be retained by the municipality for either a museum or a library until the Carnegie Library building is completed. As a museum or library or both, it is believed it will still be in the public good. The old building was erected when Oregon was a baby county, when the Dalles was a village surrounded by savages and open ranges. Pretty tough there. Now, this as you can see, this photo was taken in the 30s, but there was a vacant lot right to the east of where the Elks Lodge is today, and that was used for 2 years by the city. And then the building was moved, it was purchased by Matthias Shoren and moved to 318 East 3rd Street in 1909. Now, since it was down there all these years, and this is the photo from downstairs here in the original courthouse, a very nice photo. Shows a wagon, a horse-drawn wagon parked in front of it. So it's hard. That's probably in the 1920s or 30s, that photo. But the occupants that have been down in that building throughout the years, at 318, now it's East 3rd obviously, Matt Shoren was a blacksmith. And he started out and he made it in 1925. And this is from Polk's directives, is where I'm quoting from. In 1925, at 318 and a half, the Cecil Apartments were formed. In 1946 to 48, at 318, it was the Mid-Columbia Electric Company, Frank and Margaret Carroll. In 318 and a half, the Cecil Apartments. In 1952 to 1954, 318 was the Dixie Furniture Exchange, John L. Monahan, and that's not the John Monahan that was optometrist. This is spelled M-O-N-A-G-H-A-M. At 318 and a half were the Cecil Apartments, and at 320 was the Walter Williams used cars. 1956 to 1960 was at 318 was the Dalles Real Estate, and Harry Odos, 318 and a half Cecil Apartments. Mrs. Helen Shearer, 320 was the Walter Williams used cars again. And then there was a hiatus at that point. The city was thinking of building a parking lot where the Columbia River Bank is today. But that never transpired. And the Columbia River Bank bought the land and built their building in 1976, 1977, and today it's still the Columbia River Bank building. Then in 1960 or 61, the building was moved out to the west of the natatorium to the Lewis and Clark Memorial site at 800 West 2nd. There were actually two locations of the building out there. Jim Ellett was very instrumental in moving it around. And then the fifth location was moved to the west side of the Chamber of Commerce building. They had a 20-year lease on the land, and that ran out. And also there was a flood by Mill Creek in 1996, which furthered the move. So in 1996 it was moved where we are today. Okay, any questions or comments?
They put wheels under it?
One of Jim Ellett's lowboys probably backed up and they jacked it up and put it on and took it off. What they did though was you can see that by the numbers of windows, there's 1, 2, 3, and there's 1, 2, 3. They took off the back part that Matt Shoreham had added for apartments on the backside when they moved it, and obviously the facade and the porch.
John?
Yes.
That was when they made it into a rooming house. That's when they put in the internal staircase as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
because they didn't want
To go outside and get it.
Well, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't have it. They didn't have an internal one for the courthouse.
And one lady who told me that she lived in that rooming house down on 3rd. There were 3 apartments upstairs, and you got to it by the staircase inside. But can you imagine 3 apartments with adding a couple more 10 feet? She said they lived in it. Okay, next slide.
John, wasn't it scheduled for demolition at one time?
That's several times. Yeah, and Alf Wernmark. There's a good report by Marilyn Erickson that's downstairs. I'm kind of glossing over some things that are readily available. Yes, there was quite a bit. Okay. The second courthouse, the Times newspaper, on November 30th, 1880, reported, again the grand jury have reported recommending the building of a new jail. This has been the recommendation of every grand jury for a long time past, and still no steps are taken in the matter. The number of prisoners which have broken out of the old wooden cage, which has served for the purpose of jail for over 20 years, has fully verified the facts. Some of those prisoners have broken out through the boarded walls by kicking, while others have wrenched boards off with nothing but a stove leg. While the building remains in such an unsafe condition, it is a waste of money to attempt to repair it, for the timbers are old and rotten. There can be no doubt that our citizens desire these criminals to be housed safely and not jailed in such a building out of which they can easily escape and prey upon the community. The Times newspaper editorialized that the Mint building as an eligible site for the courthouse would be very apropos. So there was another location for the location of the second courthouse that the newspaper was advocating. The county court meeting on April 6, 1881, now is the day appearing that the county jail is insecure and inefficient for prisoners and criminals therein, and that an immediate necessity exists for the erection of a more suitable and commodious building to be used by the county for a courthouse, jail, and offices. It is further appearing that the premises now owned by this county are insufficient, and The necessary amount of land required can be procured from F. Dane Esquire, who is the owner of the adjacent premises, at a sum not exceeding $50 per foot. The building plans submitted by W.H. Williams, Portland architect, were adopted, and notice of the plan to erect the building at the corner of Court and 3rd Street was given in writing to the bidders. The contract for the agreement was to N.J. Blagan to build the new courthouse there was canceled on September 10, 1881. A lawsuit signed by several Wasco County taxpayers claimed that the spatial 8 meals tax would increase the county debt beyond the constitutional limit. April 8, 1882, after the lawsuit was settled, bids were again called for on the construction of a new courthouse. Specifications were changed in this second call for bids because the building site had been changed from 3rd and Court to 3rd and Union Streets. The sealed bids were opened again on May 27, 1882. N.J. Blagan was awarded the contract for $23,000, and it was occupied in early 1883. Let's see, we're still on 10. Stay on 10. Stay on 10. The interesting thing about this is you can see these little arched windows here. These three are still showing. This one is not showing because it's blanked off by the so-called family room in the mortuary came out there. But the only entrance to the building was off of 3rd Street. Other than in the back in the alley, there was a delivery door there. But this was the main entrance all the way along. And this was changed later by, well, you can see down here in about 1935, it was either the Pythias group or the Masons that changed the entryway to the downstairs part of the building. Okay, next slide, please. Whoops, let's see. No, I need the, no, that's okay. This is a group of men standing there, 2 photos. These are kind of hard to come from, but you can see between these 2 gentlemen, there's a handrail that goes all the way around the building. This is taken from the 3rd Street side, and this is taken from the Union Street side. And there was a handrail that went around just so they would have the yard in the between the building and the street. They took great pride in having a greenway there. And these names, I won't bother going through the names, but those are courtesy of the Wasco County Pioneer Association. Okay, now the next one. The contract for the Seth Thomas Tower Clock, the 500-pound bell, was awarded on May 1st, 1884. On November 7th, F. Dane was contracted to repair the clock for $175 and keep it in good repair for $24 per year. And then you can see the flood of 1894. It's down here because it was up this high when the town was flooded. And this of course was there's on this building there's a high water mark also. But, you can see this down at the second courthouse, and also on what's now the old post office. Across from the new post office, there's also a bronze medallion showing the flood mark.
John, I might add that I was going to go back and measure how high that was from ground level or current alley level, but I didn't do that. But I will tell you that in order to take the picture of that medallion, I had to stand on a ladder.
Okay, next slide. I'll mention, on July 21st, 1905, Daniel Norman Williams Parkdale was convicted and sentenced to hang for the murders of 2 women. In the courthouse yard on the other side from the lawn, a away from the fair cedar trees and hidden by a board fence 20 feet high, was the scaffold. And here are, in sequence, two slides showing the clerk's office in the second courthouse. And J.M. Huntington,
Downstairs and downstairs. Second
this is the second courthouse. And J.M. Huntington, it turns out there were a lot of Huntingtons back there in those days, and County Judge Dan Erickson is a part of that plan, because his mother and grandmother married into the Huntingtons, and Hazel Huntington Gromwald was my first grade school teacher. Okay, next, let's see, back one thing. Just, the only reason we have this is, this vault door shows about where it was. This picture is looking inside the building, looking northwest. And next slide, please. Here it is looking back northeast in the building. And here again is the same vault door that's in the present county courthouse. And the way to identify this was in 1914. That's mighty close to being when the new courthouse was built. But today you can see this little motif of an arch on every window that's in the second courthouse. That determines, I don't know where the old clock is, but neat picture, and you go into the vault today and you see about the same rack of deed books on the back wall. On August 19th, 1920, transforming Watsco County's old courthouse into a Pythian lodge home marks the passing of a milestone. The structure will cease to be identified with the historical life of the county, and nothing but the hourly chiming of the clock will remain a part of the life of the old courthouse. Next slide, please. Now the next three slides are of the second courthouse, as much as can be done without an architectural rendering. So here we are in the basement floor plan, and as you come in from the living door, you walk into this far. Now at the present time there's a stairway going down this way, but back then this seemed to be the only way in. And there were three brick arches here, and there's brick arch. These are presently, you can see them. Mark Powell is doing a great renovation over there, and these are those two windows, and here's a couple more of them. And in this part there's an unexcavated portion, but the ceiling is a complete brick arch. That's right underneath the upstairs vault in the courthouse, in the second courthouse. And this is being excavated. This is also being excavated at the present time. And this section right here is where the jail was, up above on the first floor. And the firewood storage was all in for here. The stove must have been located here, with the grate going up to the first floor and up to the second floor, maybe even. So the point I'm making here is that there were no jails down in the basement. It's been, at least that seems to be the current thinking, that there were no cells in the basement, even though there are these brick arches. Okay, next slide, please. On the first floor plan, here again is the opening coming in from 3rd Street, and there were double doors there. And there's a round window that's covered up. Presently, there's a stairway that goes upstairs from the main floor upstairs, which there's a question whether that was the way to get from the first floor up to the courthouse. Not the courthouse, the courtroom. So you walk in the door here, and here's the double door going to the sheriff's office, and the crossway. Here's the clerk's office we just saw, with the iron door going in. And back here we still have to house the county school superintendent, the auditor, and other people, and we're not really sure how. This first floor plan, I have to read one section here about the jail. So follow along with the jail, the sheriff's office. Apropos of which, speculation one must admit that the most interesting part of Wasco County's second old courthouse is the jail. It leads directly off what was formerly the sheriff's office. On the left of the corridor as one enters the building. The first outside room from the office has an iron door and barred windows, although it was not strongly fortified against files and hacksaws because it was a room for women prisoners, who occasionally were brought to the county seat. At the next door is a mighty one of iron with a small slide in it for the purpose of spying or possibly delivering orders and letters. One steps down 2 steps, and one is in the jail passageway where the more tractable prisoners were permitted to stay. Here there was a stove and benches, while 5 brick cells lead off from this room. Probably no poet ever stayed in Wasco cells, but if he had, he might have railed as desperately about the stench and insanitation as the famous prisoner of Reading Gold. And I'm not familiar with Reading Gold, whatever book that was. The cells certainly have a substantial appearance, but according to the testimony of old settlers, the appearance is entirely deceptive. 2 sets of bars were placed over the windows in the jail passageway, and the inner one of iron and the other chilled steel, while 3 of the steel bars are missing. It is said that 6 men once made their escape from this small passage, but were captured within a few days. Another nimble-fingered prisoner picked the bricks and escaped through a hole in the outside wall. Still another hopped over the transom until it was found necessary to line the cells with a sheet iron and bar the transom. Okay, next slide, please. Stairway location. This has been quite kind of a toughie. I phoned Elizabeth Beeler. She is Fred Wilson's daughter. She's living in the Portland area, and I asked her, does she have any inclination of where the stairway could have been? And she says, well, Johnny, I remember Daddy and I were standing in the 3rd courthouse lobby, and he mentioned that in comparison to this new courthouse grandeur stairway, the old courthouse stairs were steeper and narrower and in the back. So whatever that means about the back, whether in the back, and we're on the 2nd floor, I realize, whether it came up here, I kind of doubt that. People don't want to walk across the courtroom to get the stairway back and forth. The stairway, the present one, it comes up here, but Mark Powell found that the ceiling of the 1st floor and the floor of the 2nd floor, the boards have been changed. There may have been a stairway here, but it's only speculation about where the stairway to the old courthouse was. Okay. The building was sold after advertising in the Dalles Chronicle. The only purchasing bid received was from the Friendship Lodge, number 9, Knights of Pythias, for $12,750. Courthouse. The county court approved the bid on July 7, 1920. On November 15, 1929, the 2nd courthouse and property were purchased by the Masonic Temple Association. They deeded it to the Wasco Lodge, number 15, AF and AM, the Dalles Chapter, number 6, Royal Arch Masons, and the Columbia Commandery, number 13, Knights Templar, on January 8, 1962. Well, back in the 30s, to make ends meet for the Masons and the Knights of Pythias in the previous decade, why we had to, okay, next slide, please. They had to lease out land, or lease out part of the building. So they did, and they leased it out to various funeral homes. In 1920, the Burgett Logan funeral home was in it. In 1925, Binks Burgett and Champ R. Calloway had a chapel. In 1925, C.R. Ollie, his wife, had the Calloway Funeral Chapter. 1930, it was Callaway and Sons, Champ and Ben Callaway, and then 1948, Leonard Smith and Ben Callaway, 52, Leonard and Wilma Smith, Leonard and Wilma Smith in 1969, and Leon Kinner, and then in 1996, Leon and Myrna Kinner had it. In 1997, Jim Powell had it, and then his son, 2002, took over as manager. The building was purchased by Mark Powell in 2008, and the building is now being renovated in 2009 as a brew pub. So we'll see what happens with that. Mark's done a tremendous job of trying to restore the old building back to its originality, and so it's going to be cool to see what happens. This is a picture of the exercise yard where the scaffold was right inside that part. That's obviously a new addition, as well as this section right here of what the building was in 2000 back in 1883. And then today you can look at the old courthouse and see the clock tower. It stands out from all over. And Roger Nichols from the Chronicle thinks maybe clock tower beer problem, something like that. Okay, next slide, please. The third courthouse. Recommendation annex or new courthouse for the county. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? 1910, after a thorough investigation, the members of the grand jury in their report to Judge Floyd W.L. Bradshaw recommended that either an annex to the Wasco County Courthouse and Jail or an entirely new structure be built. They found the county institution to be in a deplorable condition, entirely too small, unsanitary, and inadequate in every respect, owing to the growth and increased population in Wasco County. The grand jury of 1911 reported, "We have examined the plans and specifications of the proposed new courthouse. The wording indicates that a new building is imminent. We recommend that the first year the foundations of the jail be complete, the vaults and the foundations according to the plans be constructed, and that the remainder of the building to cover a period of 3 or 4 years. The county court was purchasing land and had more than one choice for this site. Adjacent to the old courthouse at 3rd and Union, across the alley from the old courthouse where the post office was eventually built in 1915, and the land at 5th and Washington Street where the First Baptist Church was located. 1912, the court being fully advised in the premises and being ready at this time to take action upon the matter now before consideration, and the plans by architect C.J. Crandall having been examined by the court and adopted and approved, the court is authorized and directed to enter into a contract with S.N. Arnold for the sum of $41,764 to begin and complete all the foundation, excavation, and erection of reinforced concrete posts, walls, roofs, walls, and floors." Excuse me. The building to be erected upon lots 6, 7, and 8, block 9 of the Dalles City proper, which is where the old Baptist church had been. Then A.A. Lambert in 1913, next year, was a successful bidder for the completion of the exterior for $53,887. 1914, 3 bids were awarded. G.H. Sutherland for heating and ventilation, $5,944. The Poly Jail Building Company for jail work, $8,955. And the Boy John Arnold Company for the interior finish, $37,944. Total cost, $188,600. Wow, for that beautiful building. The structure was completed, fully equipped, occupied, and formally occupied to the public on October 3rd, 1914. Next slide, please. Now we start the 3 floors of the present courthouse. And it's the first floor plan, not the basement. It's the first floor. It goes 1, 2, 3. And starting down from the alley, this was all jails, which it has. The jail cells are still in there today. They haven't gotten quite rid of them with all their construction that they're doing. Crazy cells here. The Justice of the Peace had an office here, and I'm not sure what office was here, and the boiler was down in this corner. Now, of interest is the stairway from the jail all the way to the 3rd floor to the courtroom, and it goes all the way through. And that stairway is still in existence.
John,
Yes,
what is a crazy cell?
I don't know, that's what it was labeled as.
Somebody's out of control.
Somebody's out of control.
Okay.
And being just in the, you come in from the alley through the corridor, so, or you could, well, no, that's about it. So that was someplace where the tenants could keep a track on everybody. Next slide, please.
Hey, John,
Yes.
when did they do away with the justice of the peace, do you know?
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm going to that. I shouldn't even guess.
In some places they still have one, Sherman County.
Daryl, yeah.
I don't
Right, yeah, right.
I don't know about Wasson County, maybe when they invented the district courts.
I think it was when the state took over the court system in the 1970s, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, well, here's where these offices were. The clerk's office, right where it is today, and there's the going into the vault. County courtroom is still here, and the county judge was back here. An inspection, weights, and measures department, and then the assessor's office went over here. The treasurer was back in this back room. There was an adjoining door, but they came out this way. And the sheriff's office was located in this corner where the assessor's office is today. And here's this back stairway is going down and coming up down to the basement. And it also goes up to the second floor. Next slide, please. I see your...
Something, okay.
There we go. Okay, now we're. Okay, upstairs on the third floor, we had the school superintendent was in here. I can remember as a kid going in to see Frank Brumbaugh, who was county school superintendent. He and his secretary sat in that whole great big room. Frank sat back here, and the secretary about here. 16 feet ceilings, just the two people. Surveyor was back here, the law library is back there. Not sure what this, Daryl, do you have any idea what that may have been up on the third floor? And here in the courtroom, there's a petite jury box and a grand jury box. And back in this corner, we have a petite jury room and a grand jury room. And the difference being that the grand jury, they were separate entities like they are today, but the petite, that comes from the French word small.
Because that's now where the county court is. Law library and on that corner.
Down here, right, the county court is down here. And of course the DA's office is in here. And most of this has been left about the same. The judge's offices are up here. And here's where the stairway which leads all the way to the basement.
Well, hang on just a second. We have a small technical problem with the banner. I think that what happened is that your
Pointer?
pointer
My laser?
has had some effect on the control for my cordless mouse.
Woe is me. Woe is me.
Hey, we are really,
Okay,
we
now
are really
we're...
good at improvising.
Okay,
Okay.
Next slide, please.
I have to update your floor plan at the basement. It's there now.
Right, no, I tried to go back to the original.
Yeah.
But I thought about that, Daryl. Okay, the need for expansion began in 1958 when the county court purchased the old hospital buildings and former nurses' homes between 5th and 7th Streets for $40,000. In 1993, a new elevator was installed on the west side of the courthouse. And in 2002, the cornice restoration was completed. Those pictures are both in one. Okay to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that for ADA purposes? Today, Wasco County government is a very large organization with many properties and buildings with the personnel to conduct the county's business. 9 elected officials, 18 county departments, 5 road department locations, involved with at least 12 other agencies. And currently there is a 9-member committee working on a proposed new home rule charter form of government. And they are still working on it, so we don't know what their deliberations are going to be. But next slide, please. That ends my presentation, and special thanks to Sandy Bissett for all she did for this PowerPoint slideshow presentation. And thanks to everybody for attending.
Take some questions if people have
Be
them.
glad to.
Anybody have any questions? John?
Yes,
You're
Jim.
talking about the second courthouse. I kind of lost something. The clock tower, I mean, it doesn't look at all like it did when it was built in 1883. So who put up the clock tower and the roof
Oh,
changed and everything?
well, yes, that was added about 2 years later. I thought I hit it.
Well, you probably did, but I was maybe
I
looking and
was.
not listening, so.
Yeah,
They look like two distinct different buildings.
Yeah, totally different.
right. Yes, they are.
Back one.
Go back to the, when you have 4 of them.
There.
There,
There.
that
I mean,
first
the
one.
first one in 1883, it doesn't even look like it.
Yeah.
That's an artist rendition, I believe.
Yeah, that came from Pioneers Collection, and that's the only one I can find of the original, way back
You've
when.
got the bump out on the east side.
It's the same configuration, it's only the roof line, and maybe they didn't have enough money for the clock tower, so they waited until they did get enough. And there's a, I didn't show it, but there's a scuttle hole in the second floor of the second courthouse to get up in it. And upstairs in that chamber, there's probably an 18-foot ceiling up there, as well as an 18-foot ceiling that's in the back part of where the lodge separation is.
And also the brick arches in the basement must be just fascinating.
Very good.
Any idea what they were doing, particularly underneath the clerk's office?
Yeah. This W.H. Williams also was the architect on the Wasco Independent Academy, where the old high school was. So he worked out in Portland, kicked him up here. Yes.
Are the old cells, the jail cells, still in the second courthouse?
No. The only thing that's there you can see is the jail door going into the bins.
Down the two
Just
steps.
down those 2 steps, and then if you look from the exterior, you can still see where the bars have been cut off on the windows from the parking lot that's on the back side, and also from the front side if you get inside with Mark and Cheryl. So those are still there.
And also, there were Rainbow Girls had their meetings on the upper floor there too. Remember those?
Rainbow Girls and Demo Lay.
She had dances up there too.
And dances, it's popular place.
Amaranth, the White Shrine in Jerusalem.
Oh,
I've belonged all.
blocked up, yeah.
I've been up in that clock tower.
You've been in the clock tower.
It's pretty precarious now when the wind
It is.
do something. And we have trouble with the clock. Never able to find anybody who can fix it.
Getting
Cy Martin, Judge Cy Martin.
Old side mark, used to
Yeah,
take
he used to
care of
take care of the clock.
it. Yeah.
I was talking to John, what's his name, with the lodge down there now, and he told me there's a guy, he told me the guy's name, and I recognize the name, and I can remember.
Hugh Willis.
Yes, you're right, it is. And he's the one that maintains that clock.
Hey, okay.
Is that John Oliver? Is that John Oliver?
Yeah, yes, it was, yeah.
Okay, well, no more questions?
I have
Comment here.
I had an idea, as let's roll this idea